Hi, everyone, and happy Friday. We are here for another live session on our Heat Press for Profit podcast. And you know what? I am extremely excited for today's topic and our special guest, Ambassador Ty Kane. He is the owner, founder of Crafted Manufacturing. And you guys, if you have attended some of our shows or trade shows recently, then you might have seen Ty join us on the floor, talking to customers, just being out there and open and seeing everybody. So you know the drill. Tell us where you are tuning in from. And of course, follow our podcast. That way you can stay up to date with all the new episodes that we launch. So Ty, thank you so much for joining us today. And just for those that may not be familiar with who Ty Kane is, just give them a little bit of a background.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks for having me this morning. Ty Kane from Denver, Colorado. And we've been in business for going on 7 years. And we specialize in the headwear space, but we also do some heat pressing and contract out a little bit of screen print.
So, Ty, today we are talking about purchasing new equipment and understanding the ROI when it comes to that equipment. And if there's one thing that I have noticed when we are at shows, and it's when you are talking about the 360 to customers, it's truly understanding what equipment gives you opportunity. And I know we were just talking about this, and I heard a quote from somebody that had said, you cannot look at purchasing equipment as an expense. You have to look at it as an investment. And that's one thing that has always stuck with me, because I feel like an expense has such a negative connotation to it. It's something that costs you money. It can weigh you down. It can add stress, where an investment, I feel like, has more of an opportunity, right? Like it has a different, more positive spin on it. So with all of the equipment that is available in our industry, because this is a Heat Press for Profit podcast, so it can involve a variety type of, press for profit type of industry. So t-shirts, headwear, accessories, direct to film printers, transfers, we could just go on and on about what the opportunity is, but there's so many different types of equipment. And while a heat press is the core equipment that you need to get the job done, I think it's also important that as new equipment is developed, that you've got to be able to have a plan when purchasing that equipment, as well as truly understanding your ROI. Time is money, money is time. And just because you think it's something you can do in-house doesn't mean it's always going to benefit from you. So what is your take when new equipment just kind of launches in our industry and people run out and they've got to have it?
Sure. We ran into this in Long Beach a couple of times. We had, a lot of folks that were interested in DTG. They were ready to go out and spend, $20,000 to run it, but they've never even tried to do it. They've never sourced it. They just think they have to have it, right? But that also is happening with the direct to film movement, right? And so everyone thinks they need to make the transfers and make the films, and that's a messy process, right? And so for us, we like to do proof of concept. So, hey, let me see how much Ultracolor Max I can sell in a year. If I'm selling it like crazy and I can really justify purchasing the equipment to do it myself, maybe I'll look into it. But until then, there's really no point in my opinion to just go for it. So, Stahls, they're the leaders. They're going to spend all the money to make sure that we are taken care of. And I think that's the beauty of kind of waiting. So truly, I just believe that people should take their time, proof of concept, make sure you can really justify it. It gets here in 2 to 3 days. It's super fast. And then I always want to remind business owners, it's all about time. So if you are the salesperson and you are the accounting and you are the design person, when will you have time to do that?
So if you're a one-man show, if you're a two-man show, even a five-man show, right? Like somebody in each department, when do you have time, or when does another employee, another partner have time to really sit down and invest themselves into that equipment? It's not just a plug and play scenario like a heat press, or most heat presses, right? Plug it in, turn it on, it's ready to go. A lot of printing equipment out there is going to require a lot of maintenance. And again, maintenance is time is money. And it's something I will say over and over again. Evelyn Warner is cracking me up with this one. It's the bright and shiny syndrome. And, I definitely agree with that, because whenever there's something new that comes to the market, it's everybody run, right? We've got to be the first to capitalize on this, got to be the first ones to offer it. But how many times have people purchased new equipment and kept it in the box? And, that's one thing that you brought up to me, was just what happens when you purchase that equipment and it just sits there week one.
Yeah. I mean, I think we talked like quite a few people kind of into starting when we were in Long Beach at the Impression Show. And, I sat down with a couple of people that they've spent 20, 30K. I mean, they've got the top of the line for everything, but none of them had even started. And so, I mean, I did my best to try and get them to just start, right?
Yep.
Oh, I'm busy. I got a full-time job. Well, then start after dinner. Just start dabbling, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's none of us want to see people buy this Stahls equipment, and then it just sits there in a box. Like, you got to just start, right?
Yep. You got to try to break it. That was something that was told to me. I don't know if it was this week or last week, but it's like you got to try to break it system. You got to figure out where your max is, or what the equipment's max is, in order to truly understand the capabilities, of that equipment. And especially something that is going to be providing you a transfer printing. There's so many different elements that goes into that. And Eric Batewell said, just start. That's the best advice. Try, fail, try again, fail more, and eventually you will find your way. So, great statement, Eric, because failing is not bad. You just got to figure it out. So, you said proof of concept. So dive a little bit more into that terminology for those that are maybe looking to start a business in the printing world, and they're just not quite sure what. They know they want to make t-shirts or something particular, but what's proof of concept?
Sure. I mean, right now we have our eye on a cutter. We don't currently own one. So right now we're like really trying to see all of the things that we can produce for headwear with the cutter. Yes, we do shirts and things like that, but like I said, we're like 95% headwear. That shift for us has been great, so we're going to keep going down that path. And so I really like the die block silicone from Stahls. I'm excited for them to come out with more colors. So we do mostly white and black, and so we have a local person here. We have a person in Utah. We kind of spread out the orders. We order from them. We bring them in. We pay whatever their fees are. We see how much we can sell it. We see how well we can press it. We have had not a lot of issues, but we've had some issues with how to apply it correctly and get it to stay and all of that. So we're proofing that out. I'm okay paying the $1.25 or $1.50 that I'm paying per transfer right now. And then at the end of the year, I'm going to tally it all up. And if it's like, hey, we spent $10,000 in die block silicone, maybe $5,000, I'm going to go buy a machine. And I'm going to probably train my staff to use it. For me, that makes sense to bring it in-house from there.
So would you consider that more of kind of like the testing phase? Like we've talked about the test and fail, but then there's truly a testing phase to almost spend a little bit more money to have the products cut, ready, sent to you to be applied, versus analyzing if it makes sense to bring it in-house with the extra hands, the equipment purchase, and then of course the time to run that equipment.
Yeah, and I know that there's die block silicone is just scratching the surface of things we can do with the cutter. I'm well aware of that. It's just, we also are 99.9% wholesalers. So, while I respect Eric and Skip and all the people in the Heat Press for Profit that can do all those cool things with the layering and everything, for us, it just isn't effective for us to do it. So, I think between the silicone and then finding other ways that we can maximize time, I think that's the key, right? With bringing in a new product. So.
Well, and just like you brought up Skip and Eric and then yourself, right? Like, it's okay to not do what other people are doing. If you know that this path works for you, the wholesale world, you're developing, you're the manufacturer for your own headwear, that works for you. That's a path that you have found. And you've purchased equipment before that you wish you didn't. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I was in, I think like year 2 of business, and DTG was hot, man. It was the brother. DTG was the machine. I researched it for 6 months. I really thought that I would sell a ton of DTG. I brought it in. I luckily found it used. I call it a $7,000 mistake instead of a 20. The brother machines were $20K brand new, and I brought in a used one, and the girl that I bought it from, gosh, she was crushing it. I think what I probably should have done, to be honest, was buy her Etsy shop from her, where she was making baby onesies with the DTG instead of buying the DTG, because she was getting out of that business. Gosh, with transfers and onesies, like, you could print money, right? So that's what I should have done. So $7,000 on this DTG machine. I used it for like 6 months. I moved to a cool environment. I'd had no humidity, which the room needed to be humid. And then, when I got out of teaching, I donated the machine to the school, and it's a paperweight. So, I know a lot of us make more expensive bad decisions than 7,000, but that is my mistake, my biggest mistake. And I've learned from it. And that's why now I'm like, let's make sure we can justify bringing in new equipment.
So has there been a piece of equipment that you looked at and maybe pondered for just a little bit, right? Because any type of purchase, investment, or expense, however you are kind of looking at the adventure you're going to go on in purchasing that equipment, has there been something where you're like, this was the best decision, or something that really helped pivot your business?
Sure. I mean, prior to the 360 launch, in my research, I had realized that bottom heat was the way to not show the creases on the hat. And I think I feel like I Googled for months, a bottom heat press, right? Stumbled across the Stahls one, purchased it on the spot. I mean, I knew I'd already done all the research on it. That was a nice price back then. I think it was $15.95. So scooped one of those up. It took, 6 weeks to arrive. For us, the 360 is everything. That's been the absolute best machine for us. We've worn out the pad a couple times. So like you said about, breaking it, we haven't broke it luckily, but, we've worn out that blue and black rubber seal on the bottom a couple of times. And so that machine's been great to us, and that's our number one. And then over the last 2 years, we've purchased machine 2 and machine 3. So we've got 3 machines set up, and we can run one operator between the 2, and then on the other single, usually myself, or doing like transfers, different settings on that third machine, so we can pump out 2 or 3 different orders at one time.
So essentially you've got 2 that are partnered together. That way you can offset that 30, 45 second hit for application. And then you've got a third that gives you the opportunity to kind of do another job. That way you can do multiple jobs at once.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So when you look at your return on investment for the, your first 360, When did you decide that, okay, we need to get a second one, and then after that second one, immediately we got to get a third one, or not immediately, but when did it click to you, or what was the realization that this is really the next step to spend some more money to make more money?
Sure. I hadn't even really thought about running two at the same time when I bought the second. But what we were doing is a lot of mobile events,
Okay.
activations with the craft breweries. So, we go to the brewery, we let them, we design 2 or 3 patches for an anniversary party, or, a big summer concert event or something like that. And so, Danny, my Stahls rep, he was like, "Hey, what if that goes down? What are you going to do?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Well, event's over." Right. So adding the second machine was more of an insurance for us. Knock on wood, we've never had anything happen. But now we just bring 2 machines to the show. We set one up for transfers. We set one up for flex style PVC, that kind of thing. And then we can run both at the same time. If one goes down, of course, we have a backup, which is great. But we actually purchased machine 2 and 3 in the same year. I was definitely nervous about the price increase that was coming in 23, I believe it was.
Yeah.
So at the end of 22, one more expense on the business, purchased the third one. So I had the first machine for about a year, and then machines 2 and 3 purchased in the same 12 months.
But you saw, I mean, between to go 2 and 3, there was an urgency, right? Because you knew that there was going to be an increase. So it's like, okay, either bite the bullet and you get it done now and you save a little bit, but you're having that purchase.
Yeah.
But clearly there was something in your mind that was pushing you to that purchase, not just saving a little bit of money. Because like
Sure.
we talked about earlier, if it's just sitting there on a table or, on a counter, or if it's the backup press for events, yes, it's an insurance type of equipment, but it's not really fulfilling the jobs that you need it to. So I think that speaks a lot about having the insurance, because if you do events or you're popping up for any sports or festivals, concerts, and that press goes down, what do? Have you ever had a press go down?
No, luckily.
That's good.
I don't have any wood in this office to hit right now.
Not,
I really want to hit it. Yeah, no, nothing's gone down. But yeah, luckily so far. I mean, we've had torrential downpours in these events, and Danny and I always discuss, be prepared on those things, right? Have a great tent, have tarps, have backups of everything, right? Be elevated off the ground. This event last summer, though, we had so much rain coming down the street that our hats were on the ground, but they were in boxes and they were bagged.
Oh.
But our hats started to float down the street. So I had luckily a lot of people around helping us out with all that. But yeah, brutal.
Eric said, "You run and hide." So, if something goes down, you run and hide. No, I think that's always a big fear, right? When you're at events, because if you have one piece of equipment go down, then that can completely just halt your entire production or application, or then you start to take orders, and then you're going to end up eating the shipping, because more than likely out of customer service, you're going to ship for free. So, then that just becomes added elements. But I really don't think people think about having backup equipment, whether it's a duplicate of what you have or just something to get it done. So I guess the last question I have for you is, there's a lot of varying types of equipment out there. There's a variety of presses. There's a variety of printers. There's a variety of cutters. If somebody is looking at, say, 2 different price points, what is your recommendation to somebody if they're maybe considering a little lower price point, but they're going to cross out quality versus just get that quality piece that's going to last you for years to come?
Sure. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious for most of us, that you should spend the extra couple $100 or $400 or $500. I think also, though, like, look at the warranties. I think look at the customer service. I think the number one reason that I really have fallen in love with Stahls is the customer service. I mean, people were calling me about my designs in my portal, to make sure they got it right. And that's crazy. Like, that's awesome. So I think looking at the support around the machine, reading reviews, asking people their opinions, looking at YouTube, really make sure you understand what you're purchasing. But also, I mean, see what you want to do with it, right? So like if people are like, hey, I really want to do transfers on foamy truckers, that's why I want a top heat press only. Well, maybe they just don't realize that the 360 does the same thing, but you also can do everything else, right? And so, gosh, it took me forever to realize that I could turn the bottom heat off. So that was crazy. But, once I did, I was like, great, I don't need another press. Like, I'm going to spend the extra 500, 600. I don't even know what a cheap press costs these days. But also, like, you had asked me a little bit about the ROI. I do want to dabble into that really quick. So like, we are 100% wholesale. So I know a lot of us know what that means, but basically we bring everything in, we still make a nice margin, and then we sell to the brewery for wholesale. The brewery then sells it at retail, right? So a lot of our headwear is in the $15 to $18 wholesale. We are still at a 50 to 60% margin at those price points. And so a $15 hat to a brewery, they can get 28 to 30 all day here in Colorado. We've got clients in Wisconsin and Arizona, same thing. They can get 28 to 30 bucks for that hat, not a problem. Like our foamy truckers, we're at 10 to 11. We're at an 80% margin on those. Wow. And so I think when people start to wonder, how can I make money to pay off the machine? If we can do it at wholesale, a lot of the Heat Press for Profit group sells to an end consumer. And so just take everything I'm saying and literally double it or add an extra 25%, and you're going to be able to pay off that machine in maybe a month or two.
Yep. That's one of the when I was covering a territory or just, in sales in general, one of the biggest things I would always do was take down, whatever my goal was for the month, a week, whatever, right? My numbers, and then break it up by quantity. So if you are looking at $2,000 for equipment, then okay, you need 20 orders, right? That sets whatever margin, whatever you need in order to hit that payoff point. If you prefer larger, so maybe you want to go 10 orders with 100 pieces because you prefer larger quantity, okay, then what is that number that you need in terms of profit to turn around and pay yourself and pay for that equipment? And instead of looking at it in one lump sum, break it out, break it down, and then celebrate you and reward yourself, right? Like slap on the back whenever you can cross each one of those sales off, because at the end of the day, you see those orders that are coming in, they're helping you pay for the equipment, and that stress, the anxiety just helps to fade away.
Sure. Yeah, I just want to make sure also people understand, markup margin, because that was a mistake I made in my first year of business. I did markup. I took my total cost of everything and times it by 25%. Well, that's not the correct way to do it. So you want to divide. So we take all of our expenses. If we have an auto trucker hat for $3 and we get the Ultra Color Max for 50 cents, $3.50, we divide that by 0.5 or whatever the margin is. I think I mentioned 80%. So divide it by 0.2.
Yep.
0.8.
Yeah.
Whatever I'm trying to say. Now I'm going to confuse myself. Sorry, our normal margin for wholesale is 35%. So we have to clear 35%. So divided by 0.6 is our minimum for everything. So you take that number divided by 0.6. We know our expenses are 15%. And then after that, it's kind of all profit. The 15% covers our salaries, our rent for our office, all those things. So make sure you are dividing, not timesing by, just to help with a mistake we made in our first year of business.
Sure. Now, I do have a question for you. This came from Dave. He wants to know, okay, how do you go from just printing hats to custom ordering your own styles? How'd we get here, Ty?
Dave's the man. Yeah, I mean, that whole idea was kind of born during the pandemic. You know, you couldn't buy Richardson. We had a hat distributor that it's the only real thing that I don't share with people. So you're not going to get it from me here on this podcast.
Dave tried.
But that manufacturer, was making hats similar to Richardson. And so we found them and we've been using them ever since. And so they are a great manufacturer. But then also, like this hat I'm wearing right now, performance golf hat. Now there are some that are available, but nobody's really wholesaling them. Sanmar and SS Activewear, they have other brands that offer it, but it's not really affordable and it's not the same quality. And so for us, we always thought that figuring it out on our own was going to be the best way. And so that is something that we've pivoted to. We do customize our own hats. Of course, that's a majority of our business, but our next branch of business is to make hats for people in Heat Press for Profit to purchase. Other people, like other decorators across the US, we want to wholesale our headwear to those folks. And so, Dave, you should go on Alibaba. That's all I'm going to tell you.
Oh my gosh. I saw it. I was like, let's just see what he says. No, I know that you're...
Quick, you also need to be willing to deal with the time change. Right? Like they are 12 hours ahead of us or whatever. So if that's where you want to source from, you got to be willing to put in some late nights, early mornings to communicate.
Yeah, that's right. Right. There's a lot that's involved in that whole process. And I know there's some proprietary information you keep for yourself, but you saw, I think at the end of the day, you saw an opportunity. You saw that there was a missed element in the market and you found a way to create it. So what you needed wasn't available and you went out and made it for yourself. And I think that's pretty incredible. So Ty, tell everybody how they can follow you on social. How can they get in contact with you? We know that you are in our Heat Press for Profit group, but how else can people get a hold of you?
Sure. Yeah. Instagram, Crafted MFG. We'd love to interact with you there. And then the same on Facebook. And then, I'm always willing to answer questions if I have the time. And I only keep a couple secrets, like I said. So ask me more things and see if you can break me, I guess. But yeah, would love to interact with you guys on socials and just keep asking questions and yeah.
Keep going. So you guys have heard us talk about Heat Press for Profit just a couple of times during our broadcast today. And so if you are not familiar, I would encourage you to head over to Facebook, join our Heat Press for Profit community where you can interact with our guests and lots of your peers who are also in the heat printing business. And I know I saw Eric on as well, and he is also in that community. So Ty, thank you so much for your time today. You're always a wealth of knowledge and information in this industry, and especially for kind of creating your own lane in the headwear. I really appreciate that you took some time to chat with us today.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Bye. We'll see you later, guys.
We'll see you.